Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this edition of Leak Project. I am your host, Rex Bear, and we've got Marty Rosenblatt with us again, returning guest, co-founder of the Applied Precognition Project, group manager for several APP precognition groups, and an associative remote viewer. Analyst, judge, applying the ARV winning entanglements protocol. Marty is also president of Physics Intuition Applications, which he founded in 1998 to apply remote viewing for predicting stock market and sporting event outcomes. And as a matter of fact, this has gone to a whole other level now. They've actually got this program going on where they're looking for folks out there that have natural intuitive abilities, and they want to take them to the next level. So many of you listeners out there, I know, are really good with certain, I guess you could say, sixth sense type abilities. So take a good listen to this, and if you feel that there's a connection there, make sure to get in contact with Marty at appliedprecog.com. So just so much good information there. Also, they're going to be doing a seminar in June in Las Vegas. Is that correct, Marty?
Yep, that's correct. June 13th to 16th. It's a conference workshop involving some really great speakers. Dean Radin will be speaking, Joe McMonagle, Jeff Mishloff, a lot of people top in the field. Many of your listeners probably know these people. So they'll be there. But at the same time, we're going to actually be doing 8 sporting predictions, mostly baseball, because it's baseball season now. And we're in Las Vegas, so, optional, but a lot of people will be wagering based on the precog predictions.
It's always fun to bet a few bucks here and there if you can. I'm not a huge bettor by any means. As a matter of fact, I haven't spent more than a couple $100 in Las Vegas in my whole life, but I think it's pretty cool if you got $5 on a game with a friend or something like that. It just makes it a lot more interesting to watch. And whether or not even like sports, if you got $5 on it, hey man, this is pretty cool. So I think it'd be fun. We talked before about how every time my gut or my intuition has told me someone's going to win in a martial arts fight, I've been right every single time, even when that person was like a 1 in 10 chance of winning. So I think that I might actually throw a few bucks down in Vegas and start betting on some of these martial arts fights. But here's the interesting thing. I don't always have that feeling, and it's like, how do you get to the point to where you can always harness that, because your gut is always right from what I've noticed?
Yeah, the always is kind of a very important point, because we do have that desire to be always right when we make our predictions. It's been my experience that nobody is always right. And one of the things which we are very big on is keeping statistics when you do these precog predictions on purpose. Lots of times, and maybe it's true that when it comes in sort of out of nowhere and you just sort of feel it, maybe then it might be 100%. I sort of doubt it. But the way we do it using remote viewing and this associative remote viewing, you sit down and do it on purpose. And there what we find, the best viewers are accurate around 75% of the time. Almost everybody is accurate more than chance. It's important to keep these statistics so that, in fact, you're not kidding yourself.
Statistics are key, and that's why I said every time that I've ever had that feeling I've been right, but I don't always have that feeling. So It's like, how do you get to the point to where 9 out of 10 times, or the majority, more often than not, you can harness that ability and know when you're actually picking up on it? Because it seems like anytime you've got emotions in something, those emotions can kind of take over, and you're not using your intuition anymore because you're going with the conscious mind, not the subconscious. Is that correct?
Yep, that is correct. And in fact, that is part of the training. There's something which is called setting aside. And one of the main things that needs to be sort of set aside is your analytical thinking mind. So we do a cool down where you get quiet. It's kind of like a meditation, and you set aside things that are going on in your life now. You try to set aside your intellect as much as possible. And during the cool down is when you get in touch with your subconscious mind, your subconsciousness. I like to think of it as your submerged consciousness, because that is where the connectivity with kind of information of the past, present, and future, virtually anywhere, anytime, becomes available to you. It's kind of rather amazing when you think about that you can get in touch with things that are going to happen in the future. It also, I think, makes it more plain to individuals, and this is really important to them. It makes plain to individuals that they are creators of their own future. When you sit down and do a remote viewing session of something you're going to see in the future, and when it is successful, you didn't create that picture, but what you created was your transcript, which interacts with the picture in the future when you see them. And so the whole process is very entangled. As a scientist, the word entangled and entanglement is sort of key in quantum mechanics. And here, without having to know anything about science, you automatically are connecting with the future using what are quantum mechanical concepts like non-locality, which says that you're basically in touch with everything all the time at a deep, deep level.
It certainly seems like if you want to kind of download something, via mind, if you just really clear the mind and relax, it's a lot easier to absorb information via your intuition. So I think that's pretty cool. I've noticed some people, it just seems like when they're in certain areas, something just clicks in their mind and they're saying stuff that it's like, how do you actually know that? And they don't even know what they're saying sometimes. It's like they're tapping into the Akashic records or something and just speaking through source. So the intuition is so powerful. And I think it's great if you can actually profit off of those abilities. I mean, why not? So take that to the next level. Let me ask you, do you have competitions with a lot of people that are a part of this program where friendly competitions, of course, but people that are keeping track and saying, yeah, man, I'm 93%, you're 85.
Well, you want to know something? There's a little bit of that going on, but not much. This is kind of like a martial arts. I think in martial arts, it really becomes very personal. What you're really doing is training yourself to be more conscious. I mean, isn't that true? You're a martial arts guy. You're learning about the moves. You're learning to be more aware, and what the other guy does is sort of secondary. In this area, since we do keep, and it's very important to keep statistics, really the objective, and this really is where people who at least we're working with pay most attention, is to improve their own personal hit rate, their own success at this. And as you do it more and more, indeed, since the records can be shown to the people and are shown to them in terms of graphs. So you can see trends. You can see relationships between what you're doing and whether you're improving or not improving. The commitment needs to be relatively long term. Some people get into this, they'll do a few sessions. Hey, this was really fun, and leave, and that's fine. But they're not going to become professional precoggers. The professional precoggers are the ones who stay there. You can keep improving, and that needs to be one of the things that you sort of get in your gut. Now, with respect to the wagering, before I give you more details, if this is okay, I'm not going on too long.
No, this is great.
Okay. I want to say what we emphasize over and over again as people start getting into the wagering part of this is wager wisely, get rich slowly. And that turns out to be really significant. The wagering wisely, everybody knows, since you're not 100%, and you will find that as you keep your statistics when you do this on purpose, you obviously need to wager wisely. But get rich slowly. Deep in your gut, it's important for precoggers to get that this is a natural capability, can be trained like martial arts. You can get better at it. And so why rush it? You can do this. You can do wagering on sports, wagering in financials, and you make money, but you just make money relatively slowly. You might start with a bankroll, in the gambling business, at least that's what they call it. In the investing business, the same thing. How much are you willing to risk? And then you wager a percentage of that, and then you let it grow. And knowing you've got this capability, you can do that. Now, in terms of your listeners who feel they have these kind of capabilities, it really is important to build up a record. But when they do, we have a program from it's actually a nonprofit foundation called APPI, App Institute, that once they demonstrate a good record, we will actually basically put up some money for them. Right now it's $1,000. APPI puts up another $1,000. So we start with a $2,000 bankroll, and they are 50% owners of that bankroll, and APPI is 50% owner. And then, once we've concluded, APPI has concluded that they are really good precoggers, their hit rate is enough so that we feel with a high confidence so we can make money with them. We then use their ability, they use their ability, and we both make money. Precognition is real. Why not use it in your life? And why not use it to earn a living and become a professional precogger?
I'm so glad you bring that up. And folks, how cool is that the APPI and Marty are willing to drop $2,000 on somebody that's going to be, a possible really good at those abilities. I mean, it'll benefit everybody too. I love that win-win scenario. I mean, shouldn't everybody win from something? That's when something really makes sense, in my opinion. So just the fact that you're willing to put your money where your mouth is awesome. And so many people that listen to Leak Project, Marty, that I've talked to that send me emails and people that came on the show with their own testimony, this would be a really good platform to find people like that, because there are so many empaths and people with very powerful sixth sensibilities on here. So I'm going to be very interested to see what kind of emails I get over the next couple of weeks and what emails you get. What is your email that they can send information out to just in case they want to connect with you guys?
Okay, they can send it to me directly at Marty, M-A-R-T-Y, at p-i-a.com. But actually, even a better way, because it then becomes part of the app record, is to go to appliedprecog.com. appliedprecog.com. That's our website. And right there on the top is a contact, a place they can press contact. And right there'll be a place they can leave a message. So frankly, I prefer that because then it gets into the app system.
So now, how many people would you say typically go to these seminars, like this one you got coming up in Vegas? What would something like that typically consist of? Could you, let's say one was to go to that, can you walk us through what it would entail?
Well, yeah. In fact, I hope some of your listeners will go to the website, and all the information is frankly right there, easy to find. So, go to appliedprecog.com, and then you can see all the speakers. At there, we're splitting it up really into two parts. 50% of it, 50% of it is the workshop part, which is really the kind of super fun part, where we will actually be doing associative remote viewing. On the first day, Joe McMoneagle, who is probably the best remote viewer in the world. I mean, he does these on-camera remote viewing sessions. He finds missing persons. He's just terrific. He's going to be there the whole time, and he will, in fact, be teaching on the first day associative remote viewing. In fact, his first hour is everything you need to know about associative remote viewing. So people will actually be doing then 8 predictions. Now so there'll be one prediction in the morning, one prediction in the afternoon, and we're going for 4 days. Now, when you're not doing predictions, you're going to be listening to speakers like Joe McMoneagle, Dean Radin, Jeff Mishloff, Ed May, John Peterson. John Peterson, by the way, is going to be talking about basically the consciousness paradigm shift. Things that we are talking about here are, in my opinion, Rex, what is going to assist. I mean, we're not the only ones, but consciousness is just out there more and more. Consciousness that you can heal yourself, consciousness that you can do telepathy. All of this are part of consciousness really being the fundamental. And this is all leading to a paradigm shift, and I see signs of it already being there, but he's going to be talking about that. So that's the level of speakers that we have, plus others. And so that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a combination of great speakers plus actually doing predictions in Vegas. Now, let me just say one other thing. Not everybody obviously will be able to come, especially now that we're getting so close. June 13th is less than 2 weeks away. We do have another program which is going to be online, and there people will be able to hear the webinar speakers, okay, um, the main speakers, uh, and they will also be able to participate with a group manager in actually doing their own online associative remote viewing.
You know, we talked to Lynn Buchanan from the Stargate project way back in the day, that really high classified experience, I guess you could say, the protocols that the military was using for a long time. And it's amazing what people can do with the mind. And I really like how when you become a good remote viewer, not only can you see something, you can smell it, hear it, feel it, taste it. All your senses are in there. Now, when you do these RV sessions, can you also engulf yourself into the scene like you're there also?
Yes, in fact, um, our what we call targets in our associative remote viewing, where your job is to describe and sketch a target you're going to see in the future. That target at one level just looks like a picture, but it isn't. We make it clear to people the target is what we call a photo site, and a photo site is everything that your consciousness could pick up if you were at that site physically. So you send your consciousness to that site at the time the picture was taken. And so you can pick up the smells, you can pick up the sounds, you can pick up textures. People will almost be like walking around and they might touch things. You can pick up anything your normal senses would pick up if you were there at the time the picture was taken. And in fact, that is what you're tasked to do, is to describe what can be verified from that picture, because there's going to be an analyst, a judge, that's going to look at your transcript, and he's going to look, at actually a couple of pictures for wagering, because we might want to wager on Team A versus Team B, and they will then choose which picture, which is associated with one team or the other, you were describing. And what you get back is the correct picture with the correct association. So when you do a good job, it's clear to the judge, aha, this guy must have seen the Eiffel Tower, and that was associated with Team B. So you can then go wager on Team B.
Now, also, have you kept track of your winnings?
Yes. And now, it's sort of interesting because, of course, you always think the money is the most important part. But most of us that are in there really don't. We really get into kind of the deepening of the self. We're really talking about heavy stuff here. And we pay more attention to what does it take to get better at this? How do I get my hit rate to be really reliable? And we work on that sort of thing more. And yes, we're wagering, but we don't keep a really good tally. This is where APPI becomes so important, because there we are very purposefully keeping track of the money, because not only do we want to make money for the professional precoggers and for APPI so that we can grow and get more and more people involved, but ultimately it's money that talks to society. We think the money part of this will in fact contribute to the consciousness paradigm shift, where in fact science, who's done a marvelous job of proving this already, hasn't had much of an impact, which was rather disappointing to me as a scientist.
One thing, I got to jump in here real quick because I read a comment the other day on a podcast that I've got up on youtube.com/clandestine time lord. And it was basically, well, if people can really see things with their mind without actually being there, how come no one's ever gotten that $1 million from that experiment where I can't remember the exact name of the experiment, I'll have to Google it real quick, but supposedly there's $1 million being offered to somebody that can prove without a shadow of a doubt that they are psychic. And I think this might be one of those old urban legends, but you've probably heard that before, haven't you?
Yeah, there was a guy named Amazing Randy who had that out, but it turned out when a lot of our people looked at it, the detailed terms were so bad that nobody was going to be able to satisfy it. But I mean, I think the question, another way to put that same question is, hey, if you're so smart, why ain't you rich? And you want to know something? That's what we want to do now. What I want to do is make as many people rich as possible so they will feel very comfortable describing how they did that using their conscious, normal, natural precognitive abilities. And now that is really just within this foundation started maybe 4 months ago. So this is all new in terms of turning the focus um, to money. And some people already have doubled the initial investment. We have a woman out there who's done 80% success, and she has now doubled the investment that we've put in. So she's a very happy camper. And we have a couple of others. We have a total of 7 people that I'm working with where we've set up, specific accounts and contracts and things like that.
That's really cool. And what other things that people can do with these abilities do you think would benefit them with health? Because I know last time we had you on the show, that was one thing that we didn't have a chance to talk much about. And I've done a lot of research into Eastern medicine and the ancient, I guess you could say, Oriental medicines and such, where a lot of it's herbs and balance with the body. But many of these monks and people that are knowledgeable with the mind and how to control certain parts of the body, like their metabolism and things, they can sense what's wrong with their body if there's some type of dis-ease. And they can create a harmony of sorts just by being able to sense it with the mind. So is it similar to that?
It is similar to that. And the precognition, it I think is going to turn out as we get deeper and deeper into this this consciousness paradigm shift, that the connection between precognition and health will be the most important connection. So let me give you my perspective on that. What precognition shows and deepens deep within you is that you indeed are. It's hard to say this without sounding too weird, but that you are the creator of your own future. You are able to, and in fact should, take on more and more responsibility for your own future. And indeed, there is science showing that your current present moment does not only is not only influenced from your past, but your own future influences you to create this present moment. So where you are right now depends on both your past and the future, which you are creating. It's a whole different mindset. But as you do precognition and begin to see that you're connected with the future, and that the future that you see, you had in this entangled way a major part in creating, you get deep in your gut, deep way down in your soul, if you will, that you are in fact the creator of your life. Now, there are other people that get to participate in that, but ultimately, the way you interact with them, the way you feel about them, that's your creation. Okay, so when you get this deep, deep in your gut, you can now begin to say, not only do I create my remote viewing sessions, but there's something like remote healing. There's something like looking in the future and seeing myself being healthy. I frankly think when people get this more and more, it'll work best on people who are already healthy. I think it can work sick, as you say, when you have disease. I believe you can use this to, it's like visualization. It's so many of these techniques have been out there for millennia, but getting it so that you can do it yourself, so that you can become your own healer, is what I see a major part of this paradigm shift. And what precognition does is it lets you get, again, deep in your gut, that you can foretell a healthy future for yourself, knowing that indeed you're able to create it. So I don't know if that make sense. The words are very difficult, and yet that's one of the reasons by getting into precognition, you can sort of get it. You can sort of grok it, get it deep in your soul.
Have you talked to people that have actually been able to heal themselves that way and documented it?
Um, the only documentation, and I have it on a webinar that I had in our app group when I was explaining this to just a group of app people. A person said, "Oh my God, I did this myself, and I never even knew it." And so that's the only that's the only time. And what he said was he had gone to doctors. They actually only gave him, God, I ought to go back and listen to it. I can't remember it exactly, but it was like 3 or 6 months to live, and they wanted to do chemo on him. It was a cancer kind of thing. And he just didn't want to do that. He was caring about the quality of his life. And so what he did, and the way he said it, he did it on his own, but it wouldn't surprise me if he'd heard about visualization and that sort of thing. But what he did is he just kept imagining himself having the greatest time with his family, doing all kinds of great things with them, just feeling good. And he did that every single day, period. And this was, again, I wish I could give you the exact facts, but it was years later. I mean, he is now a healthy person. Um, The problem with this, again, now maybe putting on my scientist hat, some people do get better on their own. Was it just this that did it? That's not proof. I'm not going to say this is proof, but this is a nice story about how this idea works. And I think once you get that you can do precognition, it'll maybe motivate you to do this in the health area. And I frankly think people are just, as more and more people start doing this, as again, part of the paradigm shift, they're just going to feel healthier. They're going to begin thinking this way. And hopefully this will be a spreading grassroots sort of phenomenon.
It would also be neat to see if, with your precog program, you could get people to make predictions on future outcomes of the economy, war situations, whether it be proxy wars in the Middle East or terrorist attacks here at home. Who knows where they're from or who they're from. But have you ever thought about putting something like that together and then, or maybe even doing stuff like the Farsight Institute? Do you guys ever do remote viewing stuff that's considered fringe?
Hell, what we're doing now is fringe enough.
Bingo. You got that right.
Let me tell you where I'm coming from on that, because we get asked that a lot. There are lots of different kinds of applications. The applications I am interested in are what I call actionable. And knowing that there's terrorists out there, and that they're bad guys and they're going to be attacks on Americans in this country, that general kind of information is not actionable. What would be actionable would be if you could say there's going to be a terrorist attack in Texas, but not even in Texas. It's going to be in Austin, but not even in Austin. It's going to be in a very specific spot at a very specific time, so you could do something about it. Now, notice all the people that are doing things have never really been able to do that. We hear a lot of stuff about how great the successes are when they came close. It didn't quite happen when they said the doomsdayers. As we all know, there's some remote view out there that are always predicting doomsday. Well, you know what? The doomsday has not occurred. So I just don't go for that, because I think it's kind of, I don't know. I just don't go for it. Let me not criticize other people who are moved to do that. That's fine. But I want to do things which are actionable. Someday, I do believe that we'll be able to do things like predict earthquakes. But see, that's another example that is very difficult. I happen to live in Southern California, and I would love to know when the next big earthquake is going to occur along the San Andreas Fault, so I could get the hell out of here. But not only me, we'd love to be good enough to have a high enough track record that city officials would plan an organized evacuation. But the reality is we are not close to that. And so we just have to accept that. We are making progress in areas like finding missing persons, working with law enforcement. I think more and more of the good, demonstrated good remote viewers are getting a hearing. But it's not simple. It's not just a matter of making a prediction, putting it out there, and then having it be actionable. It becomes kind of a process. Now, notice the way we're doing it, we get to become actionable on a time frame of days because we can do our wagering, our investing on financial markets very quickly. So we can also build up that track record to gain confidence. Now, once precoggers do that in the financial market, now we'll be ready to start saying, okay, you've been really good at this. Let's see if we can get you now involved in something else and build up a record there. But you need to build up a record or nobody's going to pay any attention to you.
Now, you can actually bet on politics, right? Like who's going to be the next president out in Vegas?
Yeah, I'm going to share something with you because we did that. We get asked that a lot. And so we had a special webinar. We have groups that do predictions every week, but then we have these special webinars. And because enough people were asking about the politics, we had a question, and we like to do what are called binary questions, just two choices. Again, you can do other things, but all that we have is an edge over chance. And with binary, it's just better because you tend to get easier results. You don't have to have so many possibilities, which makes it just more difficult, really, for the analyst, not for the remote viewer. In any case, we asked the question: will Hillary Clinton be the next president of the United States? Okay, is that a political question? And the answer that the remote viewers got. And it wasn't uniform. There were some people, it was a group, but I think about 70% of the people said no. And that turned out to be the underdog prediction. There are places you can go and actually wager on this sort of thing. And she was the odds favorite to win. But here I've got it now on the record with you that at least our group in that prediction said no. Period. So that's what we did. But again, you have to realize that's a onesie. That's why we like to do this week in and week out so we can build up statistics. But you have a onesie now in the political arena.
So do you then? I guess that would just say the only other candidate really that's going to have a chance would be Trump. So you think Trump will? Does that make you feel that Trump's going to be president then?
Well, notice there are other scenarios. If she gets indicted, we're not talking politics, but if she gets indicted, who knows? Bernie may be the one who's running, so either of them could win. Or if she gets indicted after she becomes the nominee, I don't know. And I've heard this scenario discussed after she's been nominated now, so she's the official Democratic nominee. She gets indicted, she withdraws. How do the Democrats choose who will run? And I don't know the answer to that, but there are other scenarios where she might not win, period. So, we didn't ask the question if Trump will win. We just asked, will she win? And the answer was no.
Okay. And are there any projects right now that you could talk to us about possibly, or something that you haven't discussed with us before that you think is pretty important?
Well, yeah, there's something that we have not talked about here, and we don't usually get to it because we do stop with wealth and health, and that's wisdom. The subtitle of our Consciousness is Fundamental conference and workshop is Precognition, Health, Wealth, Wisdom. And I really believe deep in my gut, and this is what keeps going, is that when we as a society, we get and accept the fact that things like precognition, telepathy,
many of the other real ESP kind of phenomenon are true.
We will, as a society, be so much wiser, and what that's going to lead to, I don't think we'll have any idea. So this wisdom aspect is so important.
Now, do you meditate a lot, Marty?
I actually, and this may be a little bit unusual, but I meditate every evening. Well, no, more than the evening. I meditate first thing after I get ready to go to bed. I get quiet, close my, obviously close my eyes, and I meditate either sort of on nothing, the wild open meditation, and just sort of get deeper and let my subconscious whatever it wants to do. It's sort of my view of meditating on nothing. Or sometimes I go down with some positive intention. But yes, I meditate every night. And then when I do cool downs, I consider that to be a kind of meditation as well.
Mm-hmm. And for people that are trying to clear their minds, I know that's one of the most difficult things to do, yet the most important. What are some good ways for people to actually just clear the mind so they can meditate and learn how to create a foundation for some of these other precog abilities?
I use, and a lot of people use, and so I would recommend it, the breathing approach. You first just get settled in, get comfortable one way or another, and know that you're letting your day-to-day thoughts, your surface thoughts, what happened during the day, kind of leave you. I let it go out of my head. Some people sort of look like clouds and they let them disappear. And then begin to focus on your breathing. Breathe in and breathe out. And then I'll even focus on the air going in and out. And so you get all the other thoughts out of your head and just focus on the breathing. And you just get very quiet. You get very peaceful. Your intention is to relax. And just stay that way. Most people recommend doing that for like 20 minutes or so every day, once or twice a day. And it's very powerful. It just the relaxation alone is in fact healthy. And watch the stuff that comes up and then let it go. In precognition, you just have a somewhat different intention, which is to intend to have the stuff that comes up from the subconscious be relevant to your tasking, which is to describe and sketch your target. So there you're meditating initially, and then you listen to your subconscious. But you see, you can do that with health as well. What do I need to do to feel better about my aching knee? Stuff like that. Or you can just ask your subconscious, hey, help me out here, will you? Make my knee get better faster. Building up a communication channel with what I like to call the submerged consciousness. The conscious moment we have is this moment right now. I mean, that's all we know for 100% sure is what we're experiencing right now. Memories, we know they're there, but that's in kind of our submerged consciousness. Well, so is information from the future. So is our healthier self. All of that is in a submerged consciousness that we're in the process of creating moment to moment to moment.
Now, another thing too, with what you have been able to do with remote viewing, etc., have you ever tried to tap into different timelines, to see, okay, where am I going to be at 15 years from now? Where are these guys going to be, etc.?
Let me turn that around, because this is what I am doing. I am I am doing it. Who knows if it's successful or not. I spend some of my meditation time connecting with my future self at the level of asking it to give me some of its wisdom. I assume 10 years from now, I'm going to know lots of stuff that I don't know now. I'm not asking to identify that, I'm asking my wiser self from 10, 15 years from now to give me wisdom and listening to what comes up. And sometimes I get, how can I put this? I feel like I'm getting stuff, but it's not even at the conscious level. It's like reorganizing me. It's like I'm getting that the future can affect me now, and it's reorganizing my neurons, it's reorganizing the way I think. Sometimes I do get an idea, which in fact I'll write down, um, um, sort of like dreams. You know how stuff comes up from nowhere? So I will get things like that, but even if I don't, I take the attitude that my wiser self, um, in the future, is assisting me now in terms of making my whole neurological system wiser, better, healthier, all of that coming from my own future. You see, that's what interests me now, not the other way around.
Now, do you think that reincarnation is real, Marty?
I think reincarnation is another example of how all the information from all sentient beings is available to each of us. Um, in fact, we are entangled with it all in very subtle ways, usually. I mean, think about that. There's no way we are capable of having our consciousness be aware of all of it at once. That would be too overwhelming. So the issue is, what causes us to entangle more strongly with some things versus other things? Now, reincarnation, in my view, is an example of some people getting attached to life. See, I don't want to say it's their life because I don't know what that means. It's connected to some earlier life, because I know there have been examples where information has come out and been verified, but I'm not sure how souls connect up with this. They might be picking up information from another soul that, for reasons which probably they don't even understand, the person who feels, was regressed and got a reincarnation experience, um, they wouldn't understand why they were connected to that person, but there was information there which was out there, and there was indeed a connection. I'm willing to call it reincarnation in the sense that it's connected with a true living being in the past, at least sometimes, not always, but sometimes. But I don't know if I would say I know that it's the same soul that's living in this physical world, because I don't understand enough about what happens to souls and how they experience things after one dies. I do believe the soul lives on in a, what can I say, a coherent enough fashion that it's learned from this life, and I believe that information gets integrated into a higher form of some sort that's still connected here, and that goes on. But I, being here, at least I don't feel like I understand that much better. But that's a big step, to just say that there is a soul that lives on in some sort of coherent form that is connected to a higher entity of some sort that is continuing to learn and create. The universe of collective consciousness, which is what I'd like to call this thing that contains all information, past, present, and future, from all sentient beings, is a creative thing. It's not static. And we are part of the creative process, each of us. It's kind of amazing, actually, and cool.
It is. And, the more we learn about it, it certainly gets more exciting. And I wonder sometimes, what happens after this existence. You learn so much about quantum physics. I have had personal out-of-body experiences that literally just blew my mind, and when I had them, it made me realize we were more than our physical body. Yet I wasn't even trying to have these out-of-body experiences. I was just trying to go to sleep when it happened. So it really freaked me out, you know, and I've talked about this on shows a couple times before, but then I learned how to actually harness that ability, not every time, and it's something really difficult to do, but when you can have those experiences, I'll tell you, it's the most amazing thing ever that I've ever done. It's just absolutely incredible. And that's what I like about being able to use different parts of the mind that seem to have been suppressed with society and just the way people are raised from birth. You know, I mean, if you've got a child that's 3 or 4 years old and they see something that you don't see, what do you tell them? Oh, it's just in your imagination. You know, you're seeing things. Yet, are they really seeing those things? And who knows? Because our minds are only picking up 0.01% of the electromagnetic light spectrum anyway, and then we filter so much of that with our brains. And you know that better than I do. I mean, heck, you're a remote viewer, so I mean, so I think it's just got to be awesome. You're like a Jedi. You know, I mean, those are mental abilities that we all have the opportunity to tap into, but just like martial arts, we have to put in the time, the effort, and the sweat equity.
Look, exactly right. Look, you're a Jedi too. When you do your out-of-body experiences, you're doing Jedi-like things. But you want to know something? Everyone has these capabilities. And just as you said, unfortunately, a lot of these things are turned off in children when they're young because our society has not integrated this into its essence. I mean, hey, the scientific approach took a long time to get integrated into our society. Now it's well integrated. And look, we've come a long way. You know, Copernicus's time frame was the time frame when the scientific revolutions they started. I think, unfortunately, with that, we tended to minimize the other part of us, which was this psychic part of us. Let's use that terminology. The part of us that can do out-of-body, that has out-of-body experiences, the part that can do remote viewing, can connect up with the future, can do mind-to-mind connections. These are just as normal capabilities of consciousness as our vision. But society has not gotten to the point where it now has integrated the scientific part of reality, the scientific part of human consciousness. I mean, the intellect is part of human consciousness. That's terrific. You know, that's sort of loosely left brain stuff. But what about the right brain stuff? And imagine if the intuitive right brain stuff was integrated with the left brain stuff. It's almost like we would be a new kind of race. I mean, maybe that's evolutionarily, is that a word? But maybe that's where we're headed.
It is now.
But maybe that's where we're headed, with a true integrated being that has all of the capabilities of the left brain and the right brain integrated together.
You know, that's really a cool point you just made. We had a guest on the other night named Will Brinkerhoff, and super nice guy. His main point during the discussion was, instead of using this polarity of thought process, you know, you either have to do it or you don't. It's either right or it's wrong. It's either left or it's right. He says use that third strand of source, which is spirit, and then it all kind of integrates together. And that was one thing that really resonated with me when I spoke to him. And what you're talking about right now, kind of, I think there's somewhat of a connection there. Getting the left and right hemispheres to connect as one, creating a new evolutionary process of spirit, mind, and soul. Who knows what the opportunities could be? I think that's fascinating. And, you know, it's unfortunate to me when I read some of the comments in certain podcasts that I do with guests that talk about precognitive abilities, remote viewing, psychic type intuition, and they say stuff like, oh, that's demonic, you're getting that information channeled from fallen angels and witches and ghosts and goblins, and it's just like, well, I mean, people have those abilities naturally. Like, when was the last time you were thinking about somebody that you hadn't talked to in years, and all of a sudden, bang, you get a phone call? I mean, stuff like that happens to me all the time. I'll be thinking about somebody that posted a comment 3 weeks ago on the YouTube channel, like literally, and then 5 minutes later, bang, there's a comment, a new one that they posted. Just stuff like that. We're all connected in some way, and just because we don't see it with our physical eyes doesn't mean that that information isn't being funneled in somewhere. So it's just really incredible and nice to talk to people like you, Marty, that are actually actually living this, and many people that you surround yourself with are doing the same thing. So you guys are the X-Files. You guys are this cutting edge, and I certainly appreciate you coming on the show here with us at the Leak Project. I'd really like to recommend our listeners go to Applied Precognition Project, and if you want to become a part of these programs, make sure to do some of the research and find out if it's really for you, and then feel free probably to send Marty an email. I'm sure you'll get back to him, won't you, if you have the time?
Absolutely. Go to appliedprecog.com, and you'll be able to get lots of information and get in touch with us. And I indeed do respond, because our objective here is to get as many people as possible involved. So obviously we want to stay in touch. So just click on the contact link at appliedprecog.com.
Oh, fantastic. And Marty, before we close out tonight, are there any other gems or words you want to share of wisdom with us before we close this presentation out?
That's interesting. Well,
give us some
just know,
man.
I'm going to give you some. Know that each of you, each of us, are greater than we think we are. No matter what our vision of ourselves is today, we can do more. We are more.
Absolutely. Well, Marty, this has been great. Really appreciate you coming on the show with us. Folks, make sure to check out appliedprecog.com. Also, our website is cutting edge as well, leakproject.com. We've got about 200 full-featured podcasts there. And we're also making sure to add not only the biography, but a quick description of the shows and details that you're not going to get on other formats. So make sure to check out our website, leakproject.com, subscribe, become a member at youtube.com/clandestine time lord, get access to all the podcasts first and free, as well as make sure to be the change you want to see. This is Rex Bear. Good night. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this edition of Leak Project. I am your host, Rex Bear, and we've got Marty Rosenblatt with us again, returning guest, co-founder of the Applied Precognition Project, group manager for several APP precognition groups, and an associative remote viewer. Analyst, judge, applying the ARV winning entanglements protocol. Marty is also president of Physics Intuition Applications, which he founded in 1998 to apply remote viewing for predicting stock market and sporting event outcomes. And as a matter of fact, this has gone to a whole other level now. They've actually got this program going on where they're looking for folks out there that have natural intuitive abilities, and they want to take them to the next level. So many of you listeners out there, I know, are really good with certain, I guess you could say, sixth sense type abilities. So take a good listen to this, and if you feel that there's a connection there, make sure to get in contact with Marty at appliedprecog.com. So just so much good information there. Also, they're going to be doing a seminar in June in Las Vegas. Is that correct, Marty?
Yep, that's correct. June 13th to 16th. It's a conference workshop involving some really great speakers. Dean Radin will be speaking, Joe McMonagle, Jeff Mishloff, a lot of people, top in the field. Many of your listeners probably know these people. So they'll be there. But at the same time, we're going to actually be doing 8 sporting predictions, mostly baseball, because it's baseball season now. And we're in Las Vegas, so, optional, but a lot of people will be wagering based on the precog predictions.
It's always fun to bet a few bucks here and there if you can. I'm not a huge bettor by any means. As a matter of fact, I haven't spent more than a couple $100 in Las Vegas in my whole life, but I think it's pretty cool if you got $5 on a game with a friend or something like that. It just makes it a lot more interesting to watch. And whether or not even like sports, if you got $5 on it, hey man, this is pretty cool. So I think it'd be fun. We talked before about how every time my gut or my intuition has told me someone's going to win in a martial arts fight, I've been right every single time, even when that person was like a 1 in 10 chance of winning. So I think that I might actually throw a few bucks down in Vegas and start betting on some of these martial arts fights. But here's the interesting thing. I don't always have that feeling, and it's like, how do you get to the point to where you can always harness that, because your gut is always right from what I've noticed?
Yeah, the always is kind of a very important point, because we do have that desire to be always right when we make our predictions. It's been my experience that nobody is always right. And one of the things which we are very big on is keeping statistics when you do these precog predictions on purpose. Lots of times, and maybe it's true that when it comes in sort of out of nowhere, and you just sort of feel it, maybe then it might be 100%. I sort of doubt it. But the way we do it using remote viewing and this associative remote viewing, you sit down and do it on purpose. And there, what we find, the best viewers are accurate around 75% of the time. Almost everybody is accurate more than chance. It's important to keep these statistics so that, in fact, you're not kidding yourself.
Statistics are key, and that's why I said every time that I've ever had that feeling, I've been right, but I don't always have that feeling. So it's like, how do you get to the point to where 9 out of 10 times, or the majority, more often than not, you can harness that ability and know when you're actually picking up on it? Because it seems like anytime you've got emotions in something, those emotions can kind of take over, and you're not using your intuition anymore because you're going with the conscious mind, not the subconscious. Is that correct?
Yep, that is correct. And in fact, that is part of the training. There's something which is called setting aside. And one of the main things that needs to be sort of set aside is your analytical thinking mind. So we do a cool down where you get quiet. It's kind of like a meditation, and you set aside things that are going on in your life now. You try to set aside your intellect as much as possible. And during the cool down is when you get in touch with your subconscious mind, your subconsciousness. I like to think of it as your submerged consciousness, because that is where the connectivity with kind of information of the past, present, and future, virtually anywhere, anytime, becomes available to you. It's kind of rather amazing when you think about that you can get in touch with things that are going to happen in the future. It also, I think, makes it more plain to individuals, and this is really important to them. It makes plain to individuals that they are creators of their own future. When you sit down and do a remote viewing session of something you're going to see in the future, and when it is successful, you didn't create that picture, but what you created was your transcript, which interacts with the picture in the future when you see them. And so the whole process is very entangled. As a scientist, the word entangled and entanglement is sort of key in quantum mechanics. And here, without having to know anything about science, you automatically are connecting with the future using what are quantum mechanical concepts like non-locality, which says that you're basically in touch with everything all the time at a deep, deep level.
It certainly seems like if you want to kind of download something, via mind, if you just really clear the mind and relax, it's a lot easier to absorb information via your intuition. So I think that's pretty cool. I've noticed some people, it just seems like when they're in certain areas, something just clicks in their mind, and they're saying stuff that it's like, how do you actually know that? And they don't even know what they're saying sometimes. It's like they're tapping into the Akashic records or something and just speaking through source. So the intuition is so powerful, and I think it's great if you can actually profit off of those abilities. I mean, why not? So take that to the next level. Let me ask you, do you have competitions with a lot of people that are a part of this program where friendly competitions, of course, but people that are keeping track and saying, yeah, man, I'm 93%, you're 85.
Well, you want to know something? There's a little bit of that going on, but not much. This is kind of like a martial arts. I think in martial arts, it really becomes very personal. What you're really doing is training yourself to be more conscious. I mean, isn't that true? You're a martial arts guy. You're learning about the moves. You're learning to be more aware. And what the other guy does is sort of secondary. In this area, since we do keep, and it's very important,